Welcome to TechTalk Podcasts by Certes IT Service Solutions. In today's episode, we will be discussing: are veterans the secret weapon in the future of tech teams? We are joined by Luke Claydon, a director at Certes, and Tom Gwynn, Craig Fitzsimmons, and Mark Whittington, who are all ex-military personnel and now work in project management within the IT industry for Certes. They will be covering topics including leadership, decision-making and adaptability, culture and psychological safety, and the highs and lows of military life. Let's dive into part one.
So welcome everyone to this episode. Really interesting one, and you can see we've brought a gang of us on this particular episode. We're going to cover off sort of some interesting angles, but the main theme is we've got the great and the good collected on this session. Obviously, myself excluded, who have military backgrounds and have transferred, moved into, adapted, whatever, into a civvy street. I don't know if you guys even use that term anymore. That might be something I picked up from the movies from the Second World War, but have moved into civilian roles and actually also technology-based civilian roles. So we're gonna talk a little bit, or we're going to cover in the session a few elements of that and what people's experiences are. Okay, so we're just going to get started. So we've got Luke Claydon, we've got Tom Gwynn, we've got Craig Fitzsimmons and Mark Whittington, all collected in front of us. Now I'm going to just pick on you in any sort of random order, but I was wondering if you guys could just give me a bit of background on the forces side of things. So don't assume anything. And also in terms of the folks you're speaking to, I think you're going to be talking to some folks who maybe are in the forces, thinking of what their move is, whether they're coming into technology. I think you're going to be talking to some people who've already been through similar experiences to yourself. But please don't forget us civilians, because there's also going to be people watching this thinking, oh, actually, I'd never thought of that angle. I'd never understood what that journey is. So in no particular order, Luke, do you want to fire off?
So my background's actually, I started out in IT recruitment and then joined Certes IT Service Solutions 5 years ago, and was thrown into working with the Ministry of Defence and the Foreign Commonwealth Office and delivering some pretty high profile programs. Certes 2 or 3 years ago decided to move from a contractor model into hiring our own permanent project managers, and we instantly looked to service leavers as the archetype for our project management bench, which is why these three fine guys here today are sitting with us. So that's me. That's my background.
Okay, so that's really good. He's set you three up because he's saying, they've gone deliberately to the forces for project management. So that's a bit of a claim that you guys are particularly suited to that, and we can get into that. And we can also talk about other roles as well. But appreciate that, Luke. Thank you. And I'd also maybe at the end ask you three if whether you think Luke would have made a good soldier, or actually whether we were all spared the fact that he never served for us. So we can answer that later. So over to you, Tom, just in the order that you're appearing. What's your background and what did you do in the military before life in Certes?
Yeah, so hi everyone. I was in the army for 8 years, serving in the Royal Signals. My background was communications. I was a communications engineer. Throughout that time, I got the opportunity to work with various teams overseas and sort of multi-skill teams. So getting into that sort of leadership position inspired me to pursue the project management career path when I left. Obviously, had a great time in the military and learned valuable skills. So it's something I brought with me on that transition. I left the army in November 2023. So a couple of years now. My first role was within Defence Digital, actually. I had a contract role. It was only 12 months. But I had a good 12 months there. And obviously my time there came to an end, and I was looking for my next opportunity and actually came across former forces through Mark. I opened up having a chat with him, learned about Certes, and it just seemed like a great company to work for. Obviously, there's quite a few veterans working in the team now. So it's something I could sort of relate to. And ever since I joined, I've just felt that sort of belonging that I had in the military. So it's been great so far.
That's really interesting, talking about that sort of esprit de corps, the feeling about where you work is very important. So one of the instant feedback I got from, the guy I was speaking to over the weekend, my old best mate, he didn't have such a positive experience with his first role. I'm not going to name any logos, but it's a big sort of national food shop, or chain of shops, And he found it really difficult in the sense that when he was speaking with his fellow colleagues at work, it was extremely hierarchical, and there wasn't any kind of concept that you could go and speak to, I don't know, the boss and suggest something. It was all, he just found it really, really difficult to get his head around. So it'll be interesting when you guys talk about how when we get to some of the other topics, particularly about leadership, about whether that's something you have seen in civilian setups and also whether you've experienced even in the military, but how you kind of solve it. But Tom, thank you very much for giving us that intro. So I'm going to, no particular order, go over to Mark now. Mark, welcome.
Thanks, John.
Do you want to give us a bit of your background and the forces?
Yeah, feels like a lifetime ago now. I joined in February 95, served just short of 29 years. I started out as, and don't laugh, Craig, I was a pioneer. See, I told you not to laugh. The backbone of the British Army, the odd job men, any job that anybody else doesn't want to do, that's what we started. So it was digging holes, putting up camps, whatever. Very quickly moved into an HR role until about my 8-year point. And then after that moved into specialist occupation and welfare, which is, if you think social work in civilian street, it's the same sort of thing. So we were dealing with PTSD, operational casualties, domestic abuse, child protection, that sort of thing. But whilst I was in that role for the last 10 years of my service, I designed, built and maintained and administered a specialist IT system, working alongside people at Defence Digital like Tom. Decided I actually liked sort of computers probably more than I did people at the time. So decided to, when I left, move into the IT space. And moving into project management was natural progression. I finished my career, was very, very lucky. I got to the rank of Warrant Officer Class 1, so Regimental Sergeant Major, and was looking for the next challenge and stumbled across Certes, or they stumbled across me, and I was coerced and convinced to come and join the team.
Brilliant, Mark. And apologies that they coerced you in, but you can always escape. Are you you're the chairperson of the escape committee now?
Absolutely.
But I mean, that pioneering role, and actually, this is also what struck me, is just the amazing array of responsibilities and experiences and different things that you can do in the army over your career. I mean, Tom opened up straight away with lots of different elements and activities and contexts and tours, etc. But it sounds like, as an outsider listening in, it is a place where if you decide you want to go in a certain direction, you've got the capability.
Yeah.
The forces will kind of take you there.
For sure. I was 24 when I joined up, and I was probably a little bit lost. Didn't really find where I wanted to, or where I fitted in the world. I turned up at the training regiment and realised that I didn't know where it was going to go, but I'd sort of found a place where I could be something and somebody. Wasn't sure whether I'd even get through basic training, let alone last nearly 30 years of service, but very glad that I did. I'd said when I joined that I didn't want to get to my mid-40s, look back and think, well, what would have happened if I had? And I'm so glad that I took that step way back in 95.
Cool. Brilliant. So Craig, you're in a hotel room, you've got a Bakelite telephone. So we're not too sure. Have we called you and you're in the 1930s? You're here now. What's your forces background?
It definitely looks like I'm in the 1930s with my decor in the background. I did 24 years in the military, served in the Royal Signals like Tom. I was really fortunate to get to W1, and I was finished as a Regimental Sergeant Major. In my early days, I was a driver lineman, so communications, but in a sense of cable laying, fixing cables, setting headquarters up, putting communications between them. And as the time went on, in the military, I decided to go along and do different things. And then in 2013, I became a special communicator, serving with 209 Signal Squadron. And that's where I finished up as well. And there, the whole aspect of what I did just changed what my military outlook was. As a young soldier, I was very much a green soldier, served with the airborne forces, and then went there and did serving more as a lone, but in a different team, and being the only soldier in one stage of being the only soldier in a team of 6-7 people and supporting them, ensuring that we had communications back to the UK. It definitely, life in the military I love it. I miss it actually. I left in August last year, and struggled actually to get work. Luckily for me, another veteran pointed me in the direction of Luke and Certes. Me and Luke had a few conversations, and then really fortunate that he's given me the opportunity to go after work.
Yeah.
So
But
really good.
sorry to interrupt, Craig, but actually, Luke's way more lucky to have you in the team. That's the truth of it. Sorry, I mean, Luke will agree in any case, but
No, I do agree. I do, and not and all of them, right? Because the reason why I did look at the military and service leavers, you can take any course, and actually these guys are put on courses before they leave. That's not the most important thing, right? The most important thing, and the most important training these guys get is leadership. And when you come into the civilian world, if that's what we're labeling it as, it's quite often than not that people get promoted or end up in leadership roles just purely because they're there. And there's not a huge amount of training and funding behind that type of training. So we are lucky. We're lucky that we stumbled upon initially Mark, and then kind of opened our eyes to, well, actually, these guys are drilled to lead. It's a massive benefit to any of our customers and us internally that these guys have led big teams and in sometimes difficult scenarios. So
yeah,
Yeah.
and if you guys don't have to share stories, etc., but I think the common point is that you guys are leading and making decisions in what a civilian like me would see as an extraordinary situation. Yeah, except you guys are trained to keep calm and collected. Again, Alan, my mate, after he found it really, really difficult when he first came out of the forces. He's now he does resilience and risk management, and everyone he works with is ex-forces. The reason why I'm getting into this, like my friend and you guys, and because in all business we talk a lot about culture and getting a feeling of togetherness and all the rest of it, and I think often it's just talk. But I think when you get ex-military people together, it's you don't even have to say it; it just happens. There's a kind of, you guys click together, know how to get stuff done, and I think that's something that we could all do with you guys sort of getting to share your secret. Obviously, you can't replicate everything that happens in the army and civilian, but there might be things that we can replicate. Maybe we'll explore that a little bit more. But just so there's a lot of combined years, and there'll be highs and lows. Just let's do the highs from the military side. Is there any particular achievement or moment or experience which was a real high for you in your military career? And then we'll start getting into some of the other topics. But I just thought it'd be interesting. I'm going to pick on Tom because I did it in the order. But Tom, is there anything you can? It doesn't have to be the top thing or something, just that comes to mind as a real, great memory that you've got from your time in the forces.
One of the best memories I had in my career was getting the opportunity to help organize a trip to Patagonia on a big expedition. And I was sort of part of the team lead in that. So that was one of the first introductions to running a project, I suppose, in terms of all the admin that goes along with it, getting all the pre-training required for the trip, getting funding, organizing risk, all of that. Yeah, so that was my first introduction to project management, but actually delivering an expedition in Chile, it was amazing. Yeah, once in a life opportunity. and it's something I'll take with me. I'll never forget that. So it's a bit different to, as I say, like there's so many different things you've come across in the military that you wouldn't necessarily get in the civilian world. So yeah, I'm really lucky to have been involved in that.
Cool. And Craig?
Yeah, I've got two. So one's a personal one, and I passed P company back in 2008. So parachute selection, and yeah, I was fit, but when you get surrounded by absolutely motivated, fit people, I was near the back of the squad. So that was, you had to dig deep to do that, and then be selected in my Marine Brave. That was definitely an achievement. One I achieved right at the end of my career was as a regimental sergeant major. We didn't have I was at 299 Signal Squadron, Special Communications, and we didn't have a qualification badge, and the unit had been around for 75 years, in different guises, and we didn't have a qualification badge. And I looked around the army, and I was like, everyone's got one. We do a 6-month selection course. It's not arduous in the sense of it's tough physically. It is in one sense, but mentally, and to keep going for 6 months, but to achieve that, to get a qualification badge for the unit before I left the army, that took me just over 2 years to get. The timeline is just unbelievable. Sometimes we think, well, why does it take so long? But there's so many hoops and so many people we had to get involved. But luckily for me, I'd been the acting RSM for a year before, so I got to know I knew the Army Sergeant Major, Home Command Sergeant Major, the Corps Sergeant Major for my own corps. So I'd got to know them over that period, and having those people in support, that was where it was instrumental to get things done. And it's one of the things that I've learned over, like, in the project management space, is it's about understanding people, asking people the right questions, and getting people in a room together. If you can't do that, it becomes quite difficult. And that's why I always go, like, people is it's everything. You can have all the equipment and everything, but if you haven't got the right people, it's going to be difficult. But I had the right people behind me.
Yeah, and what you just said there about people, Craig, that's a theme that comes up in every episode we do. Even if we have an episode that's about technology, it always comes around to people. It's really, really interesting. It seems to be like a universal one, that. Thanks, Craig, for sharing that. And Mark, how about your? I don't know. It might be quite difficult for you to pick one, given how long you served and all the different things you mentioned. But what comes to mind?
Yeah, there were so many highs and lows, mutually at times. Some really great highs, and also some fairly deep lows as well. Which I think through service separation, operational deployments, exercise and stuff like that, service life isn't for everyone. It can really impact on you. I think, again, probably like Craig, I've got a couple. When I started in specialist welfare in 2003, we were seeing all the catastrophic casualties coming through from Iraq and Afghanistan, and working really closely with them as they went through their whole recovery journey was a real privilege for me, because you really became part of that support network and everything that they did. The ultimate high for me was being selected to be the senior warrant officer of my trade, to lead my cohort of peers, my entire organisation, through a period of change, and establish a different sort of leadership culture within the organisation, so that not only were they great operationally, they were also being prepared to be good leaders moving forward as well. So trying to pay it forward. I had a phone call with a friend a couple of weeks ago, and that's still ongoing. So it's nice to know that you sort of left a little bit of a mark, because I think sometimes when you leave someone described to me once, when you leave the military, it's like taking your hand out of a bucket of water. Everything will come out and go behind you. There isn't a hand-shaped hole left in that bucket of water, and everything will continue. So that was a nice thing to hear, that they're still doing some stuff that I instigated a couple of years ago.
So, Mark, there's a couple of things you said there which make that achievement very special. There's a saying which is culture eats strategy for breakfast. Yes, you can have any plan you like. If you haven't got the right culture, it won't mean anything. And if you were leaning in and changing culture, it's meant to be one of the hardest things to do. And clearly you were able to lean in because you understood the culture, you understood where you were starting from. That's an amazing achievement. And also, I mean, Luke, I'm mentioning all of this because all of these skills are all massively in the project management space. I'd say they're not common in lots of project managers, but really great project managers have this kind of, the awareness of making changes, taking on responsibility, but being confident, and following through with detail and doing things that have never been done before. Yeah, which is kind of, Craig's the first time through. Mark's changed culture. Tom's taken on something that I think a lot of people with at that stage in their life might have been really overcome with the responsibility.
What I'd say is the common theme with all the guys that have joined us, excuse me, is that the understanding that all of them have probably run more projects than a lot of the project managers that are in the market. They just use a different terminology and a different administration process at times. And it's just giving them the understanding and the support together that actually you are experienced project managers. You just don't know it. And being able to take that into different cultures and organizations outside the military. So there's a common thread.
100%. And there'll be stuff, guys, that you've done, and you might be so far through the other side that you've worked this out, but there'll probably initially be things that you did in the military that you haven't even mentioned that is actually a really big deal, for a business to know that you've done it. So there'll probably be elements of, you have a chat with anyone in the forces, and ultimately, maybe over a couple of beers, they'll mention something really just, oh, and by the way, and then you'll go, hang on a minute, what did you just say? So there's all sorts of things that you've done that won't be in there. But just thinking the other way for a minute. So you will have worked with project managers. I'm assuming you've worked with folks who don't have a military background as well. Have you had any challenges in terms of working with folks who maybe don't get that?
I think because when you join the military, you turn up on a train station platform. I don't know if Tom did, but I did. And you get put on a bus, and then you're put in a room, and you're told to march around, and the culture starts. The culture's probably started before you even got on the train, and you're starting to build and learn that. And it's one of the hardest things is when, and especially like myself and Mark and even Tom, spending that amount of time together and going through all that. When you come into a new organization, you're trying to understand what their culture is. There's the banter. Sometimes the banter can get you in trouble. And in civilian world, it gets you really in trouble. So you've got to understand where that is. And you've just got different walks of life. But when you're in the military, you've got all those different walks of life, but you're all put together, and you kind of just you form a collective, and you just do as you're told and go do all those things. But I think one of the biggest things is that I've learned since I've come out is being adaptable. It's just to understand, pressures. There's the pressures in work. You get them in the military, and you get them in everyday life. So you just gotta. That's where it comes across, and some people deal with them better than others. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I think decision making. But I'd like to say, I think in the army or in the military in general, people make a decision. If it's the right or the wrong one, they make a decision. And I get really frustrated when people don't make a decision. I'm like, well, what's our plan of action? And if it's the wrong decision, and then someone sees it's the wrong decision, it's having that accountability and being able to turn around and go, do you know what? I've made the wrong choice here. Let's go back. And sometimes it's even the person at the lowest end, the private soldier on the ground goes, oh, I think we should do this. And it's one of the things I do like in the military is like, we'll look at it and we'll go, okay, do you know what? That's a really good idea. And it doesn't matter that I've got 24 years experience. What I'll do then is go, right, okay, let's do that. And then sell that plan back to everybody else and move forward with it. But I have seen that, in my civilian lifestyle as well, been working now for 6 months. So yeah, it definitely happens.
Craig, that was Alan's experience, when he worked in this, this retail. He just felt that folks couldn't make suggestions. That it just felt weird that there wasn't this ability to sort of talk across things. And you guys might have covered something called psychological safety. With the if I was the leader and you all knew that I didn't take any bad news whatsoever, we'd all be heading for certain disaster, wouldn't we? Because that's literally how you create a team that can't, that's not going to. Well, don't tell John because he doesn't react very well to bad news, and then the data center blows up because nobody told me that the air conditioning unit doesn't work anymore because it's too old or something. So you've got to make sure. I think Craig, you keep the bar. All of you, I mean, some of you've been out in the military for longer, but keep the bar high. I wouldn't say, this is me as a CTO, yeah. I would say folks that join my team, I'm interested in really switched on engineers. When I have a discussion with my team, I take my CTO hat off and I say, right, I'm an engineer here. Sometimes I can tell that I'm absolutely spoiling everyone's conversation. I have to step out because it's not going to work. But in my head, when I'm an engineer, I'm not judging anyone. We're just having an engineering conversation. And they used to say to me, a guy who I learned from was, John, good news, yeah, you get 20 points. Bad news, you get 5 points. Wrong news, you get your P45. Now, I don't use that phrase because it's you're talking about banter. That whole expression is of a certain era of like 20, 30 years ago. But I always try and tell folks, that. So it's interesting. Mark, I think you were gonna come in with a point.
Yeah, I guess it's backing up what Craig said. That first 48 hours when you turn up at the training regiment and you've got your green overalls on and they're telling you to march and everybody's marching in a different way and you're all going in different directions and someone say left turn and someone turn to the right and someone about turn. It does set you up for what's coming next, and it starts right at the outset. But there was something that I listened to I think it was in COVID, when we were all out taking our hours exercise, all the rest of it. I got into listening to podcasts, and Central Army Leadership do some really great series of leadership podcasts. And I remember CGS at the time was talking about there being 5 generations in the military. So Chief of the General Staff said there are 5 generations. You've got the generals in their 60s and you've got the newest recruits in their teenage years. But just because you're a general in the 60s doesn't give you the right or the authority to have all the bright ideas. He said, because the bright ideas can come from anybody within that's those 5 generations. And so long as you can keep that and you keep that as your mantra, then you're doing all right. And one of my first conversations with Luke, I was nervous. I wasn't quite sure where I was going to end up. And there was something he said to me. He said, everyone can be a superhero at something. And that stuck with me as well, because it was saying exactly the same thing. And that for me is where diversity in teams should be its greatest strength, should never be a weakness. Celebrating everybody's strengths, enabling, somebody to maximize their talent, to be the best person that they can be and the best version of themselves. And you engage them in that team, they'll always work for you. It's really easy. None of it's difficult. It's not rocket science.